Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive shift happening in the global economy. We're talking about the big push to move away from the US dollar and how India and its BRICS partners are right at the forefront of that charge.
Okay, let's start with this quote, because it really sets the stage. Gundagardi. It's a Hindi word that basically means hooliganism or bullying. And that's a pretty strong word, right? But it perfectly captures this growing frustration around the world, this feeling that's pushing countries to finally look for an alternative to the dollar's grip on everything.
So to really get why this is all happening, we first have to understand the core problem. What's actually driving this whole movement?
Well, here's the crazy thing. Imagine India wants to buy oil from Russia. Logically, they'd use their own currencies, right? Rupees and rubles. But nope. The way the global financial system is set up, they're often forced to settle that deal in US dollars. And this gives the United States a huge, and some would argue a totally unfair amount of power over the world's economy.
And this isn't just some abstract concept, This power lets the US literally weaponize the dollar. You've seen it with leaders like Donald Trump slapping on painful trade tariffs, or the US using sanctions to cut entire countries off from the financial system. It's exactly that kind of economic muscle flexing that countries are desperate to escape from.
So how are they fighting back? Well, this isn't just talk anymore. The BRICS nations, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, they've been getting busy. They're actually building their very own parallel financial system.
And the crown jewel of this new system is the New Development Bank, or NDB. The easiest way to think about it is like the BRICS' very own World Bank. It's designed to pour money into huge projects, all without having to get a green light from Washington.
And just look at how serious they are about this. You might think China is running the whole show. And yeah, their portfolio is the biggest, at $8.1 billion. But look at India, right on their heels, at $7.5 billion. This shows India isn't just a bit player here. It's a real financial heavyweight in this new world order.
Okay, so having their own bank is one thing. That's the big picture. But what about the day-to-day stuff? How do you actually buy and sell goods without touching the US dollar? Well, India's gone and done something pretty bold. The country's central bank has basically flipped a switch, creating a formal, totally legal system that allows its partners to trade directly using Indian rupees, no dollars required.
And the way it works is actually pretty simple. First, a bank from another country opens a special account in India. It's called a Vostro account. Then, any trade they do is paid for in rupees using that account. The crucial part? This lets them completely sidestep not just the dollar, but also the SWIFT payment network, which is kind of like the main plumbing for the entire US-controlled global financial system.
And listen, this isn't just some theory they cooked up. It's already been battle-tested. India put this system to work in a massive deal to buy Russian oil, paying for all of it in rupees sitting in Indian banks. It actually works.
So we've seen the how, but what's the real bottom line here? What's the actual financial firepower we're talking about with this shift?
All right, let's crunch some numbers to see just how big this is. In the last fiscal year, India's exports were a whopping $451 billion.
And its imports were even bigger at $677 billion. You add that all up, and you're looking at a total trade volume of over $1.1 trillion. That's trillion with a T. But, and this is the absolute key to everything, a staggering 85% of all that trade is still settled in US dollars.
And that is the prize. That's the target, right there. If India can shift just 10 to 15% of its trade away from the dollar and into the rupee, that would redirect a flow of more than $100 billion every single year. A move like that would instantly give the rupee a much, much bigger footprint on the world stage.
So we've got the motive, we've got the mechanism, we've got the money. But what happens when you actually try to pull over $100 billion out of the dollar-based system? Well, things can get a little fishy.
I mean, come on. A move this big was never going to fly under the radar. You can't just go around poking the world's dominant economic power and not expect some kind of reaction, right?
And that reaction has come from a place you would never, ever expect. All of a sudden, there are official warnings coming out of the US about contaminated shrimp from an unnamed South Asian nation, a nation that, just so happens to be a huge seafood exporter to America and is also making these major moves against the dollar.
And the accusations are not subtle. They're very specific, and frankly, they're designed to be pretty scary. We're talking claims of radioactive material and nasty chemicals, supposedly because European countries have already turned them away. And this is where the story gets really interesting, because you can look at this in two totally different ways. On one hand, you have the official U.S. line. This is a legitimate public health issue. But on the other hand, you have the geopolitical take that this is just a convenient excuse, a trade weapon to punish India for its de-dollarization plan and protect America's own fishing industry at the same time.
It's kind of wild when you step back and think about it. What started as a high-level debate about currency swaps and central bank policy has now somehow escalated into a bizarre international battle over shrimp.
And that really leaves us with the big question here, doesn't it? Is this whole de-dollarization thing just a practical economic strategy for countries trying to get a little more independence? Or are we actually watching the opening shots of a new kind of global power struggle? One that's fought not with tanks and planes, but with currencies, sanctions, and yeah, apparently even shrimp.